Somewhere in Vermont, a phone rings at 9 in the morning. The woman who answers is in her late 70s. The voice on the line is young, panicked, and crying. "Grandma, it's me. There's been an accident. I'm in jail. Please don't tell Mom." Her heart starts pounding. The voice sounds exactly like her grandson. It is not her grandson. It is an employee in a call center outside Montreal, Canada, reading from a script. Around him, other operators are working through their own lists, telling the same story to other grandmothers across America, that morning and every morning for 3 years. Federal prosecutors would eventually charge 25 people, the total stolen $21 million from elderly Americans in more than 40 states. The boss spent his cut partying on beaches in Mexico and sent the photos to his own employees while they made the calls. This is the case file on the Montreal Grandparent scam ring. The operation ran from approximately 2021 to 2024. Headquarters: a handful of call centers in and around Montreal. Operations: the United States, every corner of it. Estimated total losses: $21 million from elderly Americans in more than 40 states. The investigation that broke the ring involved the United States Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and federal prosecutors in the District of Vermont. The mechanics of the scheme were simple. The execution was devastating. A call center operator in Montreal would dial an American senior at random, often using lists of phone numbers purchased from data brokers and filtered by age, location, and likely demographics. When the senior answered, a young voice on the other end would claim to be their grandchild. The voice was panicked, sometimes crying, sometimes whispering. There had been a car accident. They had been arrested for drunk driving. They had hit someone. They were calling from jail and only had one phone call. Behind that first voice was a second operator: the bail bondsman, the attorney, the police officer, the hospital administrator, whichever supporting role the script demanded. The second voice would take the phone, confirm the situation using official-sounding language, and explain to the grandparent exactly how to send the money. Sometimes it was a wire transfer, sometimes gift cards, sometimes a cryptocurrency conversion. But most often, in this particular ring, the answer was cash. Bundled, addressed, and handed to a courier who arrived at the victim's front door within hours. Every dollar in this story was earned over decades. None of it was earned by the people who took it. The couriers were the most distinctive operational feature of this ring. Most grandparent scam operations stop at wire transfers or gift cards. This one had a logistics layer. Operators in Canada coordinated with couriers in the United States who drove from victim to victim collecting cash in person, often within the same day the call was made. Some couriers handled multiple pickups in a single afternoon. The cash was then funneled back to the ringleaders in Montreal through a network of intermediaries. Stop for one moment and consider how the operators found their targets. The call lists were built from data, phone numbers filtered by age, by region, by household profile. If you are over 65 and your phone number has ever appeared in a customer database, a public directory, or a data breach, and statistically it has, then your number can be bought, sorted, and loaded into a dialing system exactly like the one this operation used. The people in that call center did not know their victims. They did not need to. The list did the knowing for them. $21 million in 3 years, 40-plus states, 25 defendants. Number 3 on the warning signs list at the end of this video is the specific phrase the operators in this case were trained to say first. And once you know it, you can hang up on the next call before the rest of the script even begins. Subscribe to this channel. I research one new federal case file every week. Every video on this channel is based on a real, documented prosecution. We name the defendants. We trace the money. We show you exactly how each scheme worked and what warning signs the victims missed. Now, the people who built this. The 25 defendants in the indictment include workers at various levels of the organization, but the federal prosecution is focused on 5 ringleaders who face maximum sentences of 40 years in prison. 2 key figures in this case have already been sentenced and are in federal custody. Their stories tell you everything about how this operation actually worked behind the scenes. The first is Stefano Zanetti. Zanetti, by the federal government's accounting, ran one of the call centers. He was, in effect, the boss on the floor, the person directing the operators who made the calls. While his employees sat in Montreal making fraudulent calls to American seniors, Zanetti was elsewhere. Federal investigators recovered images and messages from Zanetti's devices showing him on beaches in Mexico, in luxury hotels, in clubs, with cocaine, with cars, with parties. He sent these photos to his own employees while they worked. The photos were not subtle. They were not coded. They were not hidden. They were a kind of broadcast. The message they communicated to the people sitting in the call center stealing from elderly Americans was, "This is what we are working for. This is who we become if we keep stealing." Federal investigators have these photos. They are part of the prosecution record. The second figure is Mark Anthony Phillips. Phillips played a different role in the operation. He was one of the couriers, the cash collectors who drove from victim to victim picking up bundled bills. He worked the field. He looked into the eyes of the elderly Americans whose money he was taking. He knew who they were and what he was doing. At his sentencing in federal court, Phillips received 146 months in prison. That is over 12 years. The sentence was longer than what prosecutors had asked for. The federal judge in his case decided that the prosecution's recommendation was insufficient given the nature of the crime and the vulnerability of the victims. But the moment in Phillips' case that stays with you, the moment that explains something about the entire operation, came at his probation hearing. When asked by the probation officer what he wanted to do with his time after release, Phillips said he wanted to ask the United States Congress to establish a Grandpa Protection Program. He used those exact words. Grandpa Protection Program. He had spent years driving from elderly Americans' homes collecting their cash, and at the moment of his sentencing, he wanted to position himself as an advocate for the people he had robbed. The federal court did not accept this framing. He is serving 12 years in federal prison. In a moment, we get to the warning signs that would have stopped these calls from working in the first place. Stay with the video. Here is the part of this case that most viewers will not have seen reported. The investigation that broke this ring was not the work of one agency. It was a coordination between the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Canada, the United States Department of Justice, federal prosecutors in Vermont, and a number of state and local agencies whose victims were being targeted. The case required tracking phone calls across international lines, tracing cash movements between Canada and the United States, identifying couriers driving across 40 states, and identifying call center operators using techniques that the federal government has not made public. 25 defendants were eventually charged in the District of Vermont. Vermont was chosen as the venue because some of the earliest identified victims were Vermont residents, and federal jurisdiction in elder fraud cases follows the location of the victims. The Vermont U.S. Attorney's Office, working with the Department of Justice's Consumer Protection Branch, built the case over multiple years. The 5 ringleaders named in the indictment face maximum sentences of 40 years in federal prison each. The remaining defendants face up to 20 years each. 2 are already in custody. The rest are in various stages of extradition and pre-trial proceedings, with several still in Canada awaiting extradition processes that can take years. This is the largest grandparent scam ring federal prosecutors have publicly named in this prosecution structure. It is not the largest grandparent scam operation in existence. The Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Sentinel Network has been tracking grandparent scam losses for years, and the total nationwide losses are estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars annually. The Montreal ring is one of many operations targeting American seniors from foreign call centers. What makes it notable is that it was broken, the defendants were identified, and the case is now part of the public record. If these warnings are landing for you, I have built a free one-page guide called the Senior Scam Warning Sheet. It covers the 5 most dangerous fraud patterns federal investigators see in 2026, including the grandparent scam pattern you are watching unfold in this case. The link is in the description below. No email is required to read it. There is no charge. We will keep going. The investigation phase took years. Federal prosecutors needed to establish the conspiracy, identify the participants, trace the money flows, document the victim impact, and coordinate with Canadian authorities to make the arrests possible. The 5 ringleaders were named in the federal indictment in 2024. 2 have already pleaded out and been sentenced. The remaining proceedings continue. $21 million, 25 defendants, 3 years of operation, 40-plus states of victims. 1 probation officer in federal court hearing the words "Grandpa Protection Program" from a man about to serve 12 years for taking cash from elderly Americans at their front doors. Stay with me. The 3 warning signs that would have stopped every call in this operation are next. And number 3 is the one detail every grandparent scam call shares. Once you can spot it, you cannot be fooled by another one. Here are the 3 warning signs. Warning sign number 3. Every grandparent scam call begins the same way. The operator does not know your grandchild's name. They cannot know it. The first thing they say is a panicked variation of, "Grandma? Grandpa? It's me." They wait for you to say a name. The moment you say a name, any name, they have it. They will use it for the rest of the call. They will become that grandchild. The script flows from that moment forward. If you receive a call from someone claiming to be your grandchild, and they do not identify themselves by name before you do, end the call immediately. A real grandchild in real trouble would start with their own name. They would say, "Grandma, it's Michael." They would not wait for you to guess. The fake grandchild waits every time because they have no way to know. Warning sign number 2. The scammer will tell you, in some variation, not to tell their parents. Do not call mom. Do not call dad. Please. I am embarrassed. I do not want them to know. This is not a real request from a real grandchild. Even an embarrassed adult grandchild in real trouble does not isolate their grandparent from the rest of the family. The secrecy is the scheme. The scammer needs the grandparent to act before anyone else can verify the story. If you are told not to tell other family members, hang up, then call the parents directly. Then call the grandchild directly using a number you already know. If both of them are reached and confirm there is no emergency, the call was a scam. If you cannot reach them, the next call you make is to local police, not to a bail bondsman. Local police can verify whether anyone has been arrested in their jurisdiction in the last 24 hours. Real arrests are part of the public record. Warning sign number 1. The payment method is the diagnostic test. Legitimate bail bondsmen do not accept gift cards. Legitimate hospitals do not accept cryptocurrency. Legitimate attorneys do not send couriers to your front door to collect bundled cash. If the person on the phone asks you to pay through any of these methods, gift cards, wire transfers to unknown accounts, cryptocurrency, cash to a courier, money orders, prepaid cards, the call is a scam, always, without exception. There is no legitimate emergency in the American legal or medical system that requires payment by these methods. The presence of any of these payment requests is, by itself, conclusive proof that the call is fraudulent. The dollar amount does not matter. The level of detail in the story does not matter. The voice on the phone sounding exactly like your grandchild does not matter. Voice cloning artificial intelligence is now sophisticated enough to mimic any voice from a few seconds of social media audio. The only thing that matters is the payment method. The payment method tells you everything. If you want the full collection of warning signs across all of the major fraud patterns targeting Americans over 55, grandparent scams, romance scams, prize notice scams, investment scams, caregiver fraud, that free one-page senior scam warning sheet is in the description of this video. No email required, no charge. If you would like to be the first to hear about new cases as I research them, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. I cover one federal case file every week, and I show you exactly how each scheme worked, who the victims were, and what the warning signs looked like before they lost everything. For 3 years, 25 Canadians sat in call centers in Montreal, making phone calls to American grandparents pretending to be their grandchildren in trouble. They sent couriers across 40 states to collect cash at the front doors of elderly Americans. They stole $21 million from people who answered the phone because they thought someone they loved needed help. 2 of them are now in federal prison. The rest are in various stages of being brought to justice. One of them, before being sentenced to 12 years, told a federal probation officer that he wanted to advocate for a grandpa protection program. Has someone in your family ever received a call from someone claiming to be a grandchild in trouble? Tell me below. and tell me what state you are watching from. I want to know where these calls are landing hardest right now. This was the case file on the Montreal grandparent scam ring. On record.